Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new semester, and welcome to the new course of Introduction to Economics. My name is Wansap and I'll be with you guys through the fall 2021. Nice to meet you, and let's have a great semester together. Our first lecture will be on the microeconomics. Our first half of the semester will be on microeconomics, and the second half will be on macroeconomics. Today, we are going to have a short introduction to microeconomics. For a brief introduction of myself, again, my name is Wonsup. I'm from South Korea. You can just call me as Wonsup. And I got my PhD from Seoul National University in technology management. And before then, I went to UC Berkeley for my undergrad, and I got my economics and environmental economics bachelor's degrees there. I have joined the University of Kitakyushu quite recently. I have been working here since this April. Before then, last year, I was in Hitotsubashi University. I was working as a postdoctoral researcher at the Institute of Innovation Research. And I also had my internship in UN Development Program in New York in 2015. My main research interests are development economics, international economics, and innovation and technological advances. So if you are interested in any of these topics, I'll be more than happy to talk with you. Please let me know if you would like to get some more information about the field of economics. I believe that most of you are not familiar with the field because, well, we are in the Department of English. But I hope many of you guys get more interested in this field, this amazing field of economics after we have some lectures. And I'll be more than happy to share more information about this field. Okay, for the syllabus, well, I will try to introduce the basics of micro and macroeconomics throughout the semester. We use the textbook by Taylor et al., The Principles of Economics, which is an open textbook available at the link right there. Because the lecture materials I'll be using, well, most of the materials are from that textbook, but because I'm skipping some parts of it and I'm summarizing their explanations, if you would like to get some more details, please refer to the textbook. The assessment, class participation goes 20%. Well, the participation that includes the attendance too. And 40% each for two exams, one for microeconomics and one for macroeconomics. And our first exam for microeconomics will be held on week 8 and the second exam on week 15 for macroeconomics. And for each week, we will deal with around 1 or 2 chapters per week, which is not that much. In the textbook, it's around 30 pages, but it has lots of figures and tables. And well, if you fully understand our lecture slides, then I think you will be able to get a good score from this course. Okay. So let's talk about the economics first, and then go on to the differences between microeconomics and macroeconomics. And then we will discuss some of the basics of microeconomics. Well, they are actually the macro. They can be applied to the macro too, but the concepts of budget constraint and production possibility frontier. Well, some of the terms might be quite new to you, but don't get nervous, don't be afraid. You will get used to these terms because we will use them again and again throughout the semester. All right, first, what is economics? Well, economics. When we think about the term economics, we often link that with money, right? Because if you think of economics, you see it on the newspapers, they have the economics section, and most of them are closely linked with like the businesses or the companies or the financial issues. But actually, economics is the study of scarcity. Scarcity. Scarcity means that you don't have something enough, right? And because of that scarcity, we should always try to have a decision-making process for more happiness. If you do not have scarcity, that means unlimited resources, then we don't need to spend too much time on decision-making. Because if there are unlimited diamonds, unlimited gold, unlimited food, unlimited time, then we don't need to, compete with each other. We don't need to pay prices. But because we have so little diamonds, we have limited gold, we should compete with each other. Someone has to sell it, someone has to buy it. You should negotiate. And you should make the decisions whether you will buy gold bar or food or I don't know, some cars with your given amount of resource. Well, so economics is not necessarily about the study of money, but it is the study of scarcity. Well, we actually make economic decisions every day, which, well, again, are not necessarily about money. Well, let's think about the first question. If today's cafeteria, our school's cafeteria is always crowded, right? Especially during the lunchtime. If today's cafeteria is too crowded, then will you just skip your lunch today? Will it make you happier? Or will you go to the nearby convenience store and buy your lunch over there? Will it make you happier? So this is some kind of decision-making process to get to make yourself more satisfied with the decision that you make. And that is also an economic decision. Also, if this introduction to economics class is too boring for you, will you just cancel this registration and try to find another class? Will this decision make you happier? Well, because you have limited time, you cannot take unlimited courses, right? So because of this scarcity of the resource, you have to make a smart decision. And dropping this introduction to economics course might lead you to a better life, higher happiness rate. So these kind of decision-making processes take place in our everyday lives. So in short, economics is the study of how humans make decisions in the face of scarcity. Again, scarcity means that human wants for goods, services, and resources exceed what is available. And resources that can be something like money or time that we talked about, but that can also include so many other things like labor, tools, land, raw materials, things like that. These are all limited resources. And because of this scarcity in resources, we study economics. Let's think about all the things we consume, like food, houses, clothing, transportation, healthcare, and entertainment. Well, how do you get these items? Do you grow your own rice? Did you build your own house? how do you entertain? How do you get the entertainment? Do you actually produce all these things? Well, we do not produce them by ourselves, right? We just buy them. Then, how do you afford the things you buy? Well, you work for the payment. If you don't work, someone else works. But we never have enough income to buy all the things we want. And again, the matter of scarcity arises. We do not have enough money. Well, that's life, right? So how do you solve it? You have limited money, but you want to go to a good restaurant. You want to go and live in a good apartment, good house, and you want to wear, well, expensive clothes, and you want to buy your own car. You want to get a good healthcare service, and you might want to go to some concerts. You have so many things you have to pay. Well, so we try to make the best decision. Um, First, we could each produce everything we each consume. Well, besides the money, if you will, if you can make everything by yourself, then you don't need to worry about your limited money. Well, that's what the humans used to do 4,000 years ago when when the currency system was not established. But these days, we don't do that, right? Instead, we produce some of what we want to consume and trade for the rest of what we want. So we usually trade, right? If you are hungry, you usually trade for the food. If you want to go a little bit far, you pay for the trains. But why are we doing this instead of making everything we need? Well, as we talked about, as I mentioned, 4,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, when there was no money, well, everyone had to produce what they need. Well, growing crops, hunting for food, repairing the equipment. But these days, we don't know how to do them, okay? Well, actually, we don't have to. You don't have to know how to hunt for food. You don't need to know how to fix your computer. You can just pay for it. Then, if you pay for it, what happens? Someone else does the job for you, right? Someone else who is better than you, who is more specialized in that work. A farmer will provide you the food. An engineer will fix your computer for you. Well, this is called the division and specialization of labor. So because also the labor is also a scarce resource, and you get specialized in different types of works. Maybe you are in the Department of English, so your specialty is English. So maybe in the future, when you get a job, you might work for a company that needs someone who can speak English fluently. Then again, the specialization of labor takes place there. This was suggested by Adam Smith, one of the most important, one of the most renowned economists. Um, Suggested this concept of division of labor or specialization of labor. Well, there are certain benefits coming from the division of labor. Well, it can increase the production. First, specialization in particular jobs allows workers to focus on the parts of production where they have an advantage. Someone who is more skilled, someone who is more suitable for that job will do that job instead of you doing all the jobs. that makes the work more efficient, right? And second, workers who specialize in certain tasks often learn to produce more quickly and with higher quality. So as the specialization takes place, the learning processes also take place. This is called as learning by doing. And third, specialization allows businesses to take advantage of economies of scale. This is an very important economic concept that will again be discussed later. But economies of scale, that means if you produce something in a large scale, then the price or the cost of producing each unit will decrease. So if you produce a lot, that will make it cheaper. Well, usually the economies of scale takes place in many different fields, but it's also the same for like restaurants too. If you try to um, cook like a ramen, a ball of ramen for yourself, then you need lots of different things that you should buy, and the cost will get higher. Sometimes just going to a restaurant and eating there could be cheaper because they have these kind of all the things that they need for uh, bowls of ramens, and because they produce or they cook a lot, they can lower their prices by buying um, the noodles cheaply or buying the other things they need. So these kind of benefits come from the specializations or divisions of labor. Another thing that you should keep in mind, well, is this kind of circular flow diagram that depicts the economic flow across the households and firms. Well, in this diagram, there are two main actors, households and firms. And the households, they provide labor to the firms, right? And be after they provide the labor, what do they get? They get the money or the wages. So that's here in the figure C and D, that's in the labor market. How about in the goods or services market? Firms provide goods and services to households. Like they sell refrigerators, they sell well, they sell foods, they sell smartphones to the households or the individuals. And to get that, households or individuals pay money for that, right? So what do households get? They get the products or services and they pay money. What do firms get? They get the labor, then they pay money for that. So this is like a basic flow of economic structure that we are facing between households and firms. There are two types of economics. One thing is positive economics and one thing is normative economics. Well, positive economics is something based on uh, something that is not based on judgments. So something is, something was, something will be, and we can test it, we can prove it actually. However, normative economics is something about should, we should do this. It ought to be something, and it cannot be proved because it's something of one's idea. So positive economics is more objective viewpoint, normative economics is more subjective viewpoint. We cannot say either positive or normative is better than the other. Oftentimes, in the economic policies, we see a mixture of positive and normative economics. For example, in the normative economics, if you see the examples, the first one is higher education should be free. We cannot test it. It something should be free. Well, you could have some evidence supporting your argument, but it does not lead to it is not a fact, right? But if you look at the questions from positive economics, for example, let's look at the second example, positive economics. Are oil prices contributing to a GDP slowdown? Well, you can test it. You can see, you can test whether the fluctuations of oil prices, they have the relationship with the GDP slowdown. So it's testable. But normative economics, it's not testable. All right, so they are like two theoretical divisions of economics. Next, let's look at again, two types of economics. The first one is micro, second one is macro. Well, microeconomics is what we're gonna do for the first half, macro in the second half. Microeconomics is micro. The main actor is micro, is individual or firms. On the other hand, the macroeconomics, the actors are usually the country. So we are looking at the country level. Microeconomics is at the individual level. Of course, they are economics. So we learn about how they make decisions. But the focus is more on the macro side, policy side, national income or international trade, if we study macroeconomics. On the other hand, the microeconomics, we focus more on producing something, buying something, or how much we can make as a firm. So the focus is more on the micro side. Some of the microeconomics topics could be, how many products should a firm produce? Or how many products should I buy for maximizing my happiness? Or how much should the price be? So as you can see, most of the focus is on the firm or the individual. However, for the macroeconomic topics, they are usually the country. For example, what determines how many goods a nation produces? What determines the number of jobs in an economy? Or what causes the economy to speed up or slow down? So as you can clearly see, there are big differences, but well, some of the approaches are similar. So I think for now, you can just understand that microeconomics as the topic of individuals, macroeconomics as topic of the country. Now let's go to the basics of microeconomics. And as a decision-making process of an individual, what should we know about? We should know how much money I have. That's like the starting point, right? If you want to buy something, if you want to get something, what is the first thing that you should know? How much money you have in your pocket? Well, usually, or most of the time, all the time, you have or we have limited money to buy something. And in an economic term, we call it as the budget constraint. Well, it's the same thing, right? Constraint in our budget. Yeah. So let's look at an example of Alfonso. Alfonso has $10 and he can buy bus tickets, either bus tickets for getting to work or the burgers he eats for lunch. So he has two choices that he can buy, tickets or burgers. Burgers cost $2 and bus tickets are 50 cents. Then we can draw a graph. Because he only has $10, the maximum burgers he can buy are 5. So on the y-axis, if you draw the number of burgers he can purchase, the 5 is the maximum. And if he buys 5 burgers, he has $0 for the bus tickets. So he cannot buy the bus ticket. On the other way around, if he spends all of his money to buy the bus tickets, he can buy 20 tickets, but no burger. So so point A will be 0, 5, and point F will be 20, 0, right? And there could be some combinations of the numbers. And these combinations will be B, C, D, and E. So if you draw a line like that, that line shows Alfonso's budget constraint. If you describe it mathematically, you can say the budget is P1 times Q1 plus P2 times Q2. The P1 is product one's price, and Q1 is the quantity or the number of the product one, and P2 and Q2 are the same. So if we reflect this formula to our Alfonso's case, he has $10, that's the budget. P1, that's the burger's price, $2. And times Q quantity of the burgers, number of burgers he can eat. Plus $0.5, which is the price for the bus tickets and the quantity of the bus. So that is the budget function for Alfonso. He has $10 and the prices are $2 and $0.5 for each burger and bus tickets. So in here, we could see that he could either spend all of his money for bus, all of his money for burgers, or somewhere in the middle. And somewhere in the middle, it means if he gives up one burger, he can buy 4 more tickets, right? And that difference is the opportunity cost. Opportunity cost means what I must give up to get what I want. So here for Alfonso's case, the opportunity cost of a burger, $2, is the 4 bus tickets he would have to give up. Because burger is 4 times expensive the bus tickets. So the opportunity cost of 1 burger is the 4 bus tickets. Well, actually, opportunity cost is the value of the next best alternative. But because in this model, we only have 2 choices, right? Bus tickets or burgers. So, we do not have to consider the value of the best alternative here. The slope of the budget constraint, it shows the opportunity cost. So I'm sorry, let's go back to slide 18. Then you can see here that the slope is slope of this budget constraint shows the opportunity cost. So if you give out 1 burger, then you can get 4 additional units of bus tickets. If you give out another burger, then you can have additional 4 bus tickets. So that was the slope of the budget constraint. Let's have some examples of the budget constraint in our real lives. First, attending college is the case where the opportunity cost exceeds the monetary cost. So the monetary cost is the cost that actually takes place that you actually have to pay. And the costs of attending college, the monetary costs, include your tuition, books, or housing, and other things. But in addition, during the hours that you are attending the class and studying, it is impossible to work at a paying job. And that is the opportunity cost. So instead of coming to college, you could work somewhere else and you could get some salaries. That salary you gave up in order to come to college is the opportunity cost of attending the college. So college imposes an additional opportunity cost of lost earnings that you could get by working at somewhere else. Let's look at another case of opportunity cost. For example, what is the opportunity cost for spending 800 yen on lunch every day? Of course, that's an example, okay? Suppose that eating at home only costs $300. So the opportunity cost of buying lunch at the restaurant is 500 yen each day, is the amount that you gave up by eating at the restaurant. Well, 500 yen each day may not seem to be that much, but if that adds up to a month, 30 days times 500 yen per day equals 15,000 yen for a month. Well, you could spend that 15,000 yen for a new cosmetics or maybe new shoes that you wanted to buy. So if you describe the opportunity cost as a new cosmetics instead of 500 yen a day, you might make different choices. So these kind of opportunity costs, we do not recognize them, or we did not name them as opportunity costs before we learned this concept, but we always applied that to our everyday lives decision-making processes. Another concept is called the sunk cost. Sunk cost is costs that happened in the past, but cannot be recovered now. So we already paid for it. So there's no way we can get it back by canceling it. And well, logically, the sunk cost should not affect the current decision. For example, you paid 1,500 yen to buy a movie ticket. However, after around like 10 minutes, you found out that the movie was terribly boring. Should you stay and watch the rest of the movie because you already paid for the ticket? Or should you leave to save your time? Well, many times, although we should not consider the sunk cost in our future decision making, we cannot be that logical, right? Because you already paid the money. You cannot just leave that movie theater because you cannot just give up that money. You already paid. But well, that can be a silly choice because you are spending your one more hour on it, and that might be just waste of time. But oftentimes we take the sunk cost to our decision-making processes. Now we have learned some cost concepts. Let's see the production side. So the cost side, the opportunity cost or the sunk cost, we looked at the consumer side, right? Now we are trying to look at the producer's side. Um, let's assume that we have the social resources for production of healthcare and production of education. So you can think that we are talking about the city of Kitakyushu. They have some money, but they don't know where to spend. They have to choose between healthcare or education. So should we spend this money to build new hospitals or new public schools? Because again, they have the budget constraint. This line from A, B, C, D, F, they show the line where the government or the city can spend the money. And if the point is beyond that line, that means it's an impossible choice. So for example, we have the red dot named impossible there, right? It is beyond what we can spend. So a point beyond the PPF, the production possibility frontier, the line, is somewhere we cannot produce. If that is on the line, A, B, C, D, or F, that is an efficient choice. You are spending all of your money to build something. But there's a point named inefficient, right? The production inside the PPF, that part is inefficient because, well, compared with point C, let's compare the 2 points, point C and let's have this. So let's compare these 2 points. Well, the number of schools is smaller, right? And the number of hospitals is also smaller than the inefficient part. So if producing at this point is not a logical choice because you are not spending your resources enough. You can make more schools, you can build more hospitals, but you're not. So the choices here inside the PPF, those will be the inefficient choices. Points beyond the PPF here would be the impossible choices because, well, you don't have enough money to build that many hospitals or schools. Okay. Here, again, the slope of PPF is the opportunity cost. Well, the opportunity cost, again, if you recall, is the amount that you have to give up to get additional unit of the other. So for example, if you would like to, let's compare point A and point B. If you would like to increase these number of new schools, then you have to give up, this many hospitals. So if you give up these hospitals, then you can build these new schools. And the difference between the PPF and the budget line is that budget line is straight, but PPF is curved because of the law of diminishing marginal returns. Law of diminishing marginal returns. This is the concept that will come out often. Law of diminishing marginal returns, it means that if you increase, even though you increase the inputs, the extra benefit coming from that extra input will get smaller and smaller and smaller. Let's discuss an example. Less output as the input increases. So let's assume that you study for an exam 5 times more than the usual. Then, does your score increase by 5 times? That does not, right? So for example, if you study 1 hour, then you'll get around 80 points. If you study for 2 hours, maybe you'll get 90 points. If you study for 3 hours, maybe you'll get 95 points. Then the additional benefit coming from an additional working hour is 10 points and 5 points. It's something like this. This kind of thing also takes place during production. Just putting more and more workers in one factory, it does not lead to marginal returns. It does not lead to more and more productions. Just hiring, for example, if you have a small cafe, if you hire more part-time workers, like 15 part-time workers in a very, very small cafe, will those workers produce 15 times more coffees? Maybe not, right? Because, well, it's too crowded already. They're blocking each other on their way. And some workers don't have anything to work on. Well, in theory, we assume that there is the diminishing returns as we increase the input. So that's why here, if we decrease a little bit of healthcare here, we might have a lot more education. But next, we have to sacrifice a little bit more healthcare to increase this amount of education. Well, next, if you would like to have the same additional education, you have to sacrifice a lot more of the healthcare. And lastly, if by sacrificing these healthcare, a lot of healthcare, you only get small addition to the education. That's the concept of diminishing marginal returns and why the PPF is not a straight line. Of course, the PPF, they can differ by countries, by firms, by individuals. Let's compare the two PPFs between Brazil and the US. Of course, they are hypothetical. Well, US PPF is flatter. That means it can produce a lot more wheat than sugarcane. On the other hand, Brazil can produce a lot more sugarcane than wheat. Then it means that the opportunity cost of wheat in terms of sugarcane is lower in the US than in Brazil. If you say it the other way around, you can say the opportunity cost of sugarcane is lower in Brazil than in the US. Well, if we say this in the concept of comparative advantage, we can say US has a comparative advantage in wheat production and Brazil has comparative advantage in sugarcane production. Well, you can see that Brazil has to give up a lot of wheat in order to produce the sugarcane. Right? So it is better for Brazil to focus on producing the sugarcane. On the other hand, US is so much better in producing wheat. So the opportunity cost of wheat is lower in the US. Okay, so don't worry if any of the concept was not too clear to you for now, because we will have the reviews in the following lectures. Today, we have learned the definition of economics. Economics is the study of scarcity. And the difference between normative and positive economics. Well, so it's about what it should be and what it is. The difference between micro and macroeconomics too. Micro is the decision making by the individuals. Macro is the decision making by the countries. And the budget constraint. Budget constraint means that we have a limited budget, limited money to spend on something. And the slope of it was the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is something that you have to give up to acquire additional unit of something. And and sunk cost was something that the cost that you already spent, but that cannot be recovered. And we also saw the well, did we have the law of diminishing marginal utility? Well, I think did we have it? Sorry, let's go back. Yeah, I think I erased it. I'm sorry. So I will try to revise this part. Well, but the law of diminishing marginal utility, it will come out in the other lectures. And to the shoe, we saw the concept of production possibility frontier. It was a curved line from a producer's part, because we have the limited resources to produce something. We also have the production possibility frontier, similar to the budget constraint. And here, the slope of the PPF is also the opportunity cost. And producing on the PPF is the efficient part. Producing outside of the PPF, that's an impossible choice. Producing inside the PPF, that's an inefficient choice. And it looks curved because of the law of diminishing marginal returns. All right, so I think they were a bunch of new concepts, new economic concepts. But again, well, in the next classes, you will get more familiar with these concepts. So yeah, please let me know if you have any question, and I guess we will see each other in class from next week, right? So I'll be very looking forward to seeing you in the classroom in the next week. So have a nice week, have a nice weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.